Good morning. Welcome to the morning meeting. Bittersweet episode. Tim farewell. He'll be joining us after the election, but we're going to talk at the end of the program about the greatest moments of Tim Hogan on 55 episodes of the morning meeting. You'll also be introduced to Tim's temporary replacement. Lots to get to, whether you're watching on YouTube or the two-way platform. Welcome in. If you're here on two-way and you'd like to get in on the conversation, please raise your electronic hand. We'd love to call on you. And if you're watching on YouTube, welcome also. If you go into the chat, remember peace, love, and understanding. This is a platform for understanding and getting along, not for the tip or two commentary. All right. In the day book, the vice president basically has one event. She's doing a photo op on the border, Douglas, Arizona. But her speech in Arizona on immigration is at the fascinating time of 7:45 Eastern in Douglas. We'll talk about that. President Trump here in New York City to start the day, meeting with Vladimir Zelensky at 9:45 at Trump Tower. And then two rallies, Walker, Michigan at 2 p.m. and then Warren, Michigan at 6 p.m. Two vice presidential candidates at this writing, not doing anything, I assume, sequestered for debate prep. Doug Emhoff is meeting the Columbus Crew Championship team in the East Room at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. And President Biden is going to Scranton today, doing an open press event in Scranton. That is not clear to me exactly what that is, and then ends the day in Rehoboth. And in the Capitol today, they're celebrating the 30th anniversary of the contract with America. Fitting that that's Tim's last day. We're celebrating that, one of the great moments for Tim. A bunch of people participating, including two-way favorite Newt Gingrich. All right, guys, I want to talk first about Kamala Harris on the border. Tim, why is the event at 7:45 Eastern on a Friday night? It doesn't seem like they're really trying to confront this head on, or like, why is it 7:45, would you say?
Yeah. I mean, I think there's a read of that that's possibly, the pushback or the attacks coming from the Trump campaign potentially get minimized. I think there's also a case to be made that, local time, if they care about what's happening in the Sun Belt states and how news gets delivered to them, doing it at 4:45 their time makes sense. But yeah, it's on a Friday. It's a Friday news event.
But they controlled when they had it. I mean, obviously they want good Arizona coverage, but it's a national story. Every state's a border state, even Alaska and Hawaii. So, Sean, why do you think it's at 7:45 Eastern on a Friday? Check the
Check
box.
a
Yeah.
box. I mean, look, they
But
can say they went. Look, again, I will say this. I've said it and I'll repeat my mantra. I give them credit. They get away with checking boxes. I would love to have that as an opportunity. I think Tim's got a point there. When you look at the local press, both Nevada, Arizona, it's focused on maybe their 6 o'clock news. But again, it would bleed into a Saturday morning. So if you're really trying to affect Arizona voters, you're really not doing a great job there. The other thing is, and just for people, I mean, one thing that having done a couple of these, it's not always as easy as you think logistically. Like, so, right, you got to go west and you're like, okay, what day can we do that? What fundraisers do we have out there? And sometimes as a guy that was more interested in the press versus the money, there are days when the fundraising people say, hey, we're going to be there. We've got this event. This is your only shot at doing it, right? The fundraisers at this time or the other event, whatever it is.
yeah,
And there's times when we all sit around and go, why are they doing this? And it's because when you have 40 days left to go, it's like, if you want to do it, this is the only time you can.
yeah. Which well could be the reason, because she is doing fundraising in the West around this event, or after this event. So uh, they did a bunch of briefings for reporters, right? There's a lot of background quotes about it. And again, so far they've done a masterful job of getting her argument, which we've heard before. She supported the bipartisan bill. She has a record as a prosecutor. She's got a plan to deal with fentanyl. What she didn't, and her aides didn't even seem to address, because I don't see it in any of the previews, is what happened for 3.5 years. What does she think about sanctuary cities? All these things. And I think she'll get away with it unaddressed, particularly because it's a Friday night. So kudos to them for handling this. And two new ads. Let's watch them both, and then you guys can say what you think. We'll watch them back to
Mark, real
back
quick.
first. Yeah,
Can I just,
yeah, go ahead. Yeah,
to your point, when you read the playbook description of what happens, ask yourself exactly the question that you just asked. So if anybody looks and says, here's the preview of what she's going to say, it is almost as if she hasn't been vice president for 4 years.
Yeah,
It's
correct.
I would, they're like, here's what she's going to roll out today. And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, are you kidding me? How can you possibly say all this and not have ever proposed any of it? Right.
Because
They did, though.
because the press wants her to win, number one. Number two, they don't really care much about the immigration issue, most of them. And number three, they're just easily fooled into watch the shiny object. But for none of the, as I said, none of the previews say, well, she's going to have to deal with her record of being part of failure for 3 years. Whether you want to call her the czar or not, it was still her administration. And none of them deal with her past positions, not just the administration record, but sanctuary cities, decriminalizing the border. All these things are just absent from the previews, and I think she'll get away with it. Which again, kudos to them and the Trump campaign. I'm sure is frustrated. All right, let's look at the two spots. 102 first, please.
Kamala Harris has never backed down from a challenge. She put cartel members and drug traffickers behind bars, and she will secure our border. Here's her plan. Hire thousands more border agents, enforce the law and step up technology, and stop fentanyl smuggling and human trafficking. We need a leader with a real plan to fix the border, and that's Kamala Harris.
I'm Kamala Harris, and I approve this message.
The word plan appeared 3 or 4 times. All right, 107, please.
You've probably seen all these negative ads against me. Well, here's the deal. They are designed to tear us apart. But here's the truth. My life's work has been fighting on behalf of others. It's why I became a prosecutor, district attorney, and attorney general. I took on drug cartels and human traffickers to protect our communities. Look, everyone is tired of the petty, destructive politics. Let's turn the page and chart a new way forward. I'm Kamala Harris, and I approve this message.
I'll go on record first as saying I think those two ads are great. They're really well produced. I think her delivery in that on camera thing is great. I wish they'd done the gimmick where she turns to the TV that's playing a negative ad and turns it off with the remote control, because that's my favorite thing. All these negative ads, but short of that, I thought those ads are fantastic. Sean.
I think the first one with the VO was much stronger. I don't find her personally authentic, so I think the second one didn't look good. I will say this: look, this is the same repeat story. It blows my mind that someone who's been in office for this long is trying to pretend that she's the new candidate and that this is all new. I mean, you didn't do any of this stuff. This is literally like Breyer's.
She's got a plan, Sean.
This is literally like the folks at Breyer's running an idea talking about how they're part of your diet to lose weight. I mean, it's ice cream that's going to help you lose weight. She has done nothing. And I just, again, great ad. I don't think that people are going to buy that suddenly you care. I get why they're doing what they're doing. I'm not sure that this is the most effective tactic because they open themselves up to this narrative. There was a much better way of leaning into it, saying we've tried. Anyway, we don't need to go down the rabbit hole, but I'm not sure that this is the most effective way.
People are buying it. She's already closing the gap on who do you trust more in immigration. Tim, back me up. Those are great ads, right?
Yeah, right. Tough position for me to take. No, those are good. I think those are good ads. They've got her with law enforcement in almost every single shot there. It's, again, a reiteration of the first ad that we ever saw them roll out, that she has strength, talking about how she has a plan. I think it's smart to get her direct to camera because there are still people who have not seen her enough. When people say, I don't know enough about her, frequently that also means I just haven't seen her. I don't know what fully what she is about. But I am glad. I remember we talked about this very early, too, that Democrats, that Kamala Harris is not backing down on the immigration debate. I think there is a world in which Democrats sometimes get bullied on this issue, but there is, I think, despite Sean's points, a solid argument for them to make that there was a plan, that it was endorsed by conservative Republicans, that it was tanked. There is the Chip Roy argument, that infamous floor speech that Donald Trump did not do enough on the border, even when he had the House, the Senate, and the White House. And on this historically, too, we've had immigration plans get passed the bipartisan way. 2013, again, Republicans killed the plan because hardliners took over. So I think there is ground for Democrats to push back here. I think that's what this ad does.
So look, and I will just say this because there's two issues at stake here: the politics, which they're going to, and then the policy. And so I will yield that it's a good ad, right? It's well produced, it's strong. But there is the policy piece of this. The quote, and this is where, again, I think Democrats do a good job of blending border security and immigration reform, and make it sound like one thing. That bill, It sucked. It was a horrible bill. I'm glad Donald Trump and every Republican, the idea that it was this bipartisan panacea was a complete farce. Just because Jim Langford was part of it doesn't make it this great bill. I think the bill sucked. I'm glad every Republican tanked it because it would have been horrible for this country. So I just anyway, I think there's a difference between the politics and the policy, and I think that is good politics what she's saying, but it is not good policy.
All right. We're moving on. All right. Again, if you want to be in the conversation, please raise your hand. If you're on the two-way platform, we'll get to you soon. All right. There's a bunch of new polling out. And as we always say, like, don't go crazy over one single poll. Look for the trend. Which way are things moving in the 7 states? If you look at the polls in this news cycle, you can't even do that. So let's look first at 106. There's a Fox Georgia poll that shows Harris up. And you can see there Harris moving up, right? Trump trending down, Harris trending up, and Harris with a 3-point lead. That's not consistent with most of the other recent Georgia polls. We'll see. Maybe something's going on there. Now, there are no fewer than 3 Arizona polls, one of which is part of a Bloomberg suite of polls in all the battleground states. So first, let's look at the Fox Arizona poll, 105, please. So Fox has Trump up 3 in Arizona, right? Or 2 in Arizona, 50-48. So Trump up by a little bit. Now let's look at the new USA Today poll, 109. This has Trump with a massive lead in Arizona, 6 points, and it shows the Senate race at only 6 points as well, which I continue to believe that race could tighten up despite Kari Lake not being a perfect candidate. Lastly, the Bloomberg polls, 104. So Bloomberg and Morning Consult did every battleground state, and they're largely good for Harris. Up in Arizona, up in the swing states overall. Tied in Georgia, up in Michigan, up in Nevada, or Nevada, as some like to say, up in North Carolina, up in Pennsylvania by 5, up in Wisconsin by 3. These polls people are off trashing Morning Consult. They're not always the best pollster in terms of accuracy. But I continue to believe, based on the private data I've seen, that Trump's, of the 7 states, Arizona is the best for Trump. And so that USA Today poll may be more accurate than some of the others, although I don't think he's up by that much. So, Tim, what should people think about the state of the 7 states going into the weekend based on that polling and everything else you know?
Yeah. I mean, it's a little bit choose your own adventure at this point. It doesn't mean your adventure is right, but you can look at a different set of polls and come to a different set of conclusions. It's at the point now where we have had a deluge of polls over the last week, right? Daily, multiple state polls, multiple swing state polls. It is a time, I think, to look at aggregators. They're very good at weighting, and that's whether that's 538, whether that's Split Ticket, whether that's the Times, whether that's the Silver Bulletin, and we're all still in the same place. And I don't know that those most recent polls have been included in it, where essentially you have the blue wall that is leaning towards Harris plus Nevada, all within a range of less than 1 point to 3 points, and then you have some advantage, very, very small for Trump in North Carolina and Georgia, and like you said, larger in Arizona. So I think that is probably the most likely current state of play. And you just, don't chase down the outliers too crazily. And that's on either side, right? We're not going to win Nevada by 7 points. That is not going to happen.
Sean.
So real quick, you mentioned, just let's talk Arizona real quick. There have been 8 public polls since 9/11, right? Trump up 1, Trump up 1, Trump up 5, Trump up 2, Trump up 1, Trump up 3, Trump up 6, and then the Bloomberg poll, which is Trump up 3. So 7 out of 8 showed Trump up in Arizona but between 1 and 6. I think that's a pretty good trend for Trump in Arizona. The other thing that's interesting is in a few of these polls, at least 3 of them, he's over 50% or higher. That's important, hitting that 50% threshold, because Trump's normally had somewhat of a ceiling. And if you're at 47, 48, that's not a good place to be trying to put the state in the bag. I would say of all of the 7 states, I feel very, very confident in Arizona for those reasons. And look, if it wasn't for that Bloomberg poll, that would show every single public poll with Trump leading either inside or just outside the margin error. So in this case, I think Arizona to me is safe of the 7 as you can get.
Yep, it's the best of the Trump states, I think. All right, let's look quick at Electoral College map, please, number 110 that I put together. Increasingly, the conventional wisdom is correct. Pennsylvania is the key. If you said, as you said, you can know the winner of 1 state to know who would win, you'd pick Pennsylvania. But in this map, I gave Trump the 3 Sunbelt states, not North Carolina. I gave Trump Pennsylvania. I gave Harris North Carolina. This is not an implausible outcome, and it's an outcome that allows Trump to win. I did Maine, the Maine 2 to Trump, and Nebraska 2 to Harris. So under this scenario, and again, there's some people in both campaigns. Put it back up, please. I'm sorry. Put the map back up, please. There's some people in both campaigns who believe that North Carolina is a better state for Harris. Put 110 back up, please. They think North Carolina is a better state for Harris than Pennsylvania. So this is not an implausible scenario. And as Tim pointed out before we started, that makes Nevada maybe the key state, right? If Trump wins the 2 other Sunbelts, he wins Georgia and Arizona, which are his 2 strongest of the 4 Sunbelts, and they flip Pennsylvania and North Carolina, which could happen, then assuming Trump doesn't win Michigan or Wisconsin, we go back out to Vegas as the key state. And people's views of that are really divergent. The ghost of the Harry Reid machine versus, unions versus Trump's presence there, et cetera. So, Sean, what do you think of this map? What do you have to say about this idea?
I think it's extremely plausible. I think going back to the point that we made just a moment ago, if with the exception of Arizona, again, I think Democrats are obviously not going to yield it. That's why she's out there today. But even if you assume Arizona, you take those 6 other states and start playing some slice and dice. I think Pennsylvania becomes critical and whoever wins. I does come back to Pennsylvania, because if Trump carries Michigan and Wisconsin, which I do believe is plausible, that he carries the whole blue wall, because I just think the way that particular set of voters goes, as one goes, you might get a lot of them, meaning that they're very similarly modeled in those 3 states. But as long as he carries Pennsylvania, I think her road becomes much, much more difficult.
Well, again, what it does, except what I'm saying is under that map, flipping Nevada from red to blue.
Right. Oh yeah,
but my point is she can lose Pennsylvania and still win.
Yes,
she can,
then that assumes
because those two Sunbelt states may not move with Georgia and Arizona. She may be able to win them both, even if she loses Pennsylvania. Because as I said, in the campaigns, they think Pennsylvania is a worse state for her than North Carolina. Tim.
Yeah. A couple things. One, it's not impossible. By no means is it impossible, but we have not really seen the blue wall break up in a significant way in recent presidential elections. So I think the odds that Pennsylvania goes one way and Michigan, Wisconsin go the other are lower. Doesn't
disagree. Play the buzzer on that. Sorry, Tim. We got to get one more buzzer for you. Play the buzzer. I'm telling you,
one more buzzer.
Everybody I talk to agrees. Yeah. Pennsylvania is a worse state for her than the other 2 blue wall states. It just is.
I don't disagree that it's worse. I don't disagree that it's worse. I think it is just rare that you are going to see those split. But to your point, look, the next state for her, yes, is North Carolina, where depending on the averages, it's a Trump favorite right now by like 0.3 to 1, very low. And then yes, it comes down to Nevada, where I think the ground game has never dissipated, even since Harry Reid's era. The culinary union, that ground game still works. And
100 years from now, Tim, you'll be telling me about the Harry Reid machine. I will say, you know what else is rare? A reality show host becoming the Republican nominee 3 cycles in a row and a Black woman president, also rare. All right, I want to just show a couple fun things, then we're going to go to your questions. First, 101, please. The story of Harris creaming Trump on spending is not a one-day story because the New York Times writes it one day. This is an everyday reality that the Trump campaign faces. They're being massively outspent on TV, on digital, everywhere. Okay, they're just something to consider. Every day you wake up, you say, "What's Harris got going for herself today?" She's massively outspending Trump. But then look at this, 103. I get all the email solicitations from both campaigns. They get this from the Harris Waltz campaign. Donald Trump is leading in swing state polls. We must keep pace with Trump's spending to retake the lead. First of all, a lot of polls don't say Trump's in the lead. And of course, the notion that she needs more money to keep pace with Trump's money, ridiculous. Lastly, you can throw out the entire previous episode because we know who's going to win based on what Paul sent me, not our Paul, but a different Paul from the Grand Rapids, Michigan airport. Please put up 108. So in Grand Rapids, they sell bobbleheads at the airport. If you can see the sign there, there's lots of Trumps left, but the Harris bobbleheads are sold out. More coming soon. Sean, you agree? Bobbleheads in Grand Rapids decisive, correct?
Oh, that and yard signs.
Yeah, that in your signs. All right. Excellent. All right, let's bring folks in again. As always, thank you for participating. Phoebe, tell people where you are. Love the little cameo there. Adorable. Who are you support? Where you are, who you're supporting, and what's on your mind. One more time on mute there, Phoebe.
Yeah, hi. I'm registered to vote in California, but I've been living in London, UK for a long time. So
Awesome.
my husband would pirated episodes of the circus for me when I was living here. So I'm reluctantly voting for Trump because I'm a staunch Christian, and so I think the woke ideology just doesn't sit right with me. But I'm also not happy with Trump being a role model for young people. I have two.
Phoebe, I'm sorry to interrupt, but did you vote for Trump in 16 or 20?
Not in 16. Maybe 20. I don't know. Yeah, I forget.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So go ahead. Your two questions, please.
Okay, two questions. So listening to Kamala in interviews, she just reminds me of being in grad school and listening to people use a lot of complex, convoluted ways to express very, not much substance. And so, I mean, eloquence and lucidity of thought aren't necessarily equated to competence, but I think because she has a good chance of winning, I just need some reassurance that she has some skills that are necessary for the presidency. And so, what is she good at? I just need to know what she's good at.
Yeah.
And
okay, that's a great question.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. How important is the evangelical vote? I did hear talk that if the evangelicals, that if they all kind of came out in force, they could sway the election. I know there's kind of a push for the Amish to vote mail-in ballots in Pennsylvania. So how important is that? So two questions.
All right, Phoebe, great questions. I'll start on the first one. I've known the vice president before she was a senator. She's better than she appears because her public presentation is one of her weak suits in some elements. And no one is ready to be president, right? But I think that the challenge for her will be, you compare it to not just the previous presidents, but the previous major party nominees. She hasn't really been part of a lot of national conversations. She hasn't been part of understanding the party. She's been in a one-party state, your state, where Republicans don't really matter. So I think it will be a challenge for her, but she has had an extraordinary 3-year tutorial given to her by Ron Klain and the president, who really understood that she needed a heartbeat away, not assuming she'd be the nominee this time. So I think she's got more experience under her belt than people realize. But it's a challenge for anybody. And again, what worries me is she was involved in national conversations as an AG, but beyond that, she's behind where most people are, and she'll have to speed along, and she'll have to have good people around her. Tim, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with most of that. I think the experience that you get as being vice president, being in the situation room, meeting with foreign leaders, all of the high stakes, you're one step away, right, from leading the country. And so you are in the room with all the high stakes conversations. And I think in terms of like how she speaks and presents herself, I think the best test of that is a debate setting, right? You are walking into a place where, yes, you're prepared. Yes, you know you have a message that you want to deliver, but that's like any other setting. That's like an interview. That's like a speech. But you also have to contend with someone who, particularly in Donald Trump, is totally chaotic. You don't know what he's going to say, even if you like him, right? You're not really sure what he's going to say. Probably didn't walk into that debate thinking we're going to be talking about dogs and cats. And yet she holds her own and comes out of that with people thinking that she wins. So I think in those high pressure situations, she's shown a really good ability to communicate.
Sean, briefly on this, and then talk about evangelicals.
I think that the presidency is like what Mike Tyson said about fighting. Everybody's got a plan until you get punched in the face. So you can be as prepared as you want, but until you actually sit in that seat and have to make the decisions about life and death, and you never. So we're trusting as voters to say, who do we think can handle that more than anything else? Because there's no even being vice president doesn't put you in the same driver's seat. That being said, I don't think she projects a level of confidence as a politician where, again, I don't, when I look at her, I don't think to myself, wow, I feel safe knowing that she'd be in charge or making decisions. And all of the inside information about her is how difficult how difficult of an issue it is for her to make a decision, how she goes through machinations. So I don't think that she inspires voters with a level of confidence that you want as a commander in chief that says, when that phone rings, are you going to make a decisive action? And that's a problem. And that's why I think people, there's a term that keeps getting thrown around, Harris curious. And I think that's because people are interested in her, but they're not seeing her close the deal.
Sean, talk about the evangelical vote. Obviously, every voting group matters in a close race, but will Donald Trump support from evangelicals in terms of both contribution to the vote and percentage he gets? Do you think it'll be the same as 16, same as 20?
It's a great question, Mark, because up until about 2 months ago, I would say it's going to exceed where it is. I don't think he's done himself any favors with the discussion about abortion and IVF. There's a lot of folks, and I can't tell if they're serious or not, who are upset about some of the comments that he made. Do they sit on their hands? So they're not going to vote for Harris, but do they either vote, cast a protest vote or not? I have to believe they come home, but I think to your question, it is a very decisive, and I know Ralph Reed and others have made getting and turning out that vote in some of the key areas, identifying those folks, getting them registered for new low propensity voters. I think it's going to be something that we look at after the election, though, because it's an X factor, and you're right to question it.
Yeah,
Phoebe, come back regularly. Thanks for joining. Yeah, go ahead.
Right.
Go ahead, Phoebe.
No, especially with Israel and everything happening now. I mean, that's important for evangelicals. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank
Phoebe,
you.
thank you. Come back regularly. Always bring her, though, please. Thank you. All right. Oops, did that wrong. Michael, tell everybody where you are, who you're supporting, what's on your mind, please.
Yeah, my name is Michael, and I am going to vote in Pennsylvania, but right now I am in Prague just for some business. Now,
who are you support? Who are you going to vote for, Michael, if you know?
Well, I was going to vote for Larry Hogan because he's like the ideal man, although I cannot obviously make much of a difference, but I'm still somewhat undecided. However, I have a question for Sean. And before I say that, thank you very much for your program. I think that's the only program which has the mantra of peace, love, and understanding, and I do appreciate it. But the question I have for Sean is that Donald Trump seemingly personally, and the way I see it is that most people the people who don't like him have to do with his personality, while the people who don't like Kamala Harris do not agree with her policies, whatever they may be. So I wonder if you feel that there is some kind of a redeeming feature to him. I see him more as a pathological narcissist who has no compassion and no sense of humor. So the question I have is if there is something more in his personal being or not as a public figure, which has some kind of redeeming qualities.
Michael, before Sean answers, have you voted for Trump in 2016 over Clinton or over Biden? Did you ever vote for Trump before?
No, I have never voted for Trump. I have always voted for third party because I just could not swallow his personality.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Michael. Go ahead, Sean.
So the interesting thing is the face that Trump puts forward is the one that he wants you to see, right? I have seen him in some pretty interesting times, both personally and then witnessing some other things. He can be unbelievably empathetic. He's one of the funniest people I've ever seen in terms of making jokes and laughing. To be blunt, I don't think he wants you to see that. He likes to show you that tough exterior, the hard negotiator. I think he would benefit from that. He doesn't, for whatever reason, doesn't choose to show you that side. And there have been people, for those folks that saw or watched the Moms for Liberty conversation he had with Tiffany Justice, she asked him some personal questions about his mom and his childhood, and he would pivot. And I've seen him do that over and over again. That's how he tries to present himself. I don't disagree with you. But I've personally witnessed it on several occasions, both personally on issues that I've had to deal with, and then watching him deal with some other people through difficult situations. And I wish that people could see that side of him. He just chooses not to show because of the image that he wants to put forward.
Michael, thank you. Come back regularly. Appreciate it. Chris, welcome in. Tell folks who don't know where you are, who you're supporting, and what's on your mind, please.
Hi, Mark. I'm a Democrat my whole life. Clinton, Biden, voting for Harris. I did vote for Weld, a moderate Republican, found you through YouTube. I've been listening to Two Way since before Biden dropped out. Registered to vote in New York, but I've lived in the Balkans and Bosnia for the last 28 years, which gives me a single issue voter approach where I'm going to vote for the president who supports NATO. And if it was the other way around and Trump I thought was truly going to be good for NATO and Harris would not be, I'd switch. That's how strongly I feel about it. I actually wrote in the comments, I have potentially 7 discussion points. I'll just choose one if you want. I have 2 criticisms of Two Way, but it's Tim's last day. I can hold back, and a prediction. Which would you like?
Well, Chris, first of all, thanks for joining. I would need to warn our affiliates. We're going to run a little bit over. Chris, you're offering 2 critiques of Two Way or a prediction. Is that what you're offering us?
Yeah, or actually, here's the one I think that's most interesting. Well, there is one person.
Let's take your prediction. We'll take your prediction, Chris.
Well, let's have
any criticism of Tim. I mean,
yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, Sean, actually, my criticism. No! Never mind. Actually, here it is. Here's a point. I think there is one person on this planet who can throw the election to Trump, and there's nothing the Dems can do about it. Nothing. Who is that person?
Tom Brady.
No.
I wish.
Melania.
No. It's Netanyahu. If he starts an all-out war with Iran and spikes the gas prices in America, it derails the Harris-Walz Express. There's no way they can recover. It focuses on forever wars. The prices go up, and Trump's macho routine wins. It's really, and you watch Netanyahu right now, and he's really heating things up. He's a politician who requires right now perpetual war. But in terms of predictions, I advise leaders here on presidential outcomes, and I've come very, very close to predicting them 2 times in a row. And this time I've told them I cannot predict it. I just can't.
Yeah.
There's just too much that's unpredictable right now. And
Chris, thanks for
well, the upside is you have a 50-50 shot of being right.
Yeah.
So
Chris, thanks for joining. If we had more time, I'd want to discuss with you Donald Trump's view of NATO. I don't think he's as anti-NATO as people say, but I understand it. I like.
Well, I do agree. I think the best thing for us in NATO is Trump scares the shit out of them. They pay what they should, and then Trump loses.
Yes. Okay.
But Sean, I said then Trump loses, so don't cheat.
I'll take the money.
All right, Chris, thank you for coming in and for sharing. Good episode for those who like balance, because we had one single issue Harris voter on NATO. Don't find that a lot, but I get it. So as we conclude, Tim again is coming back after the election. For those of you who don't like Tim, sorry. For those of you who liked him, just a couple weeks away, Tim's triumphant return. Tim, let's unveil the man who will fill your seat temporarily while you're gone. There he is, Dan Tarantine. Dan, welcome in.
Hello.
Dan has been part of the program, so people shouldn't be stunned. I keep doing this wrong. Somebody will spotlight. There we go. All right. So Dan, welcome in. Tim, right in front of everybody, the vast North America and worldwide viewing audience of the morning meeting. Give Dan like the basic rules of the road of how you stand shoulder to shoulder, old lang syne, kumbaya with Sean Spicer. What would the advice be? How to execute that?
Look, I would say don't let Sean Spicer bully you. But I will also say Sean is a good guy. And I think this is a really fun platform. He has very insightful thoughts. Sometimes I write them down and tell people Sean Spicer has a good idea, and he's going to attack us with this. The Republicans are going to attack us with this. This is their strategy. But no, this is very fun, Dan. Happy to hand it over to you. And also just a note on Mark, the media is not as liberal as he thinks he is. Don't let him tell you it's just that liberal. So, those are the shoes I leave here.
That's a good advice. Dan, tell people who don't know, just tell a little bit about your background in terms of what you've done in politics.
Sure. So I was in politics for about almost 20 years, 10 years kind of actually in the trenches, ran fundraising for Hillary Clinton and was a consultant that had a lot of clients, including the great Nancy Pelosi. And then, like a lot of people in DC, went into lobbying and oversaw lobbying for trade association and a company. But love it, love everything about it, and love this platform. Always love learning, not just from Sean, but the various people who join, who are part of the community, and look forward to doing my best to keeping Tim's seat warm here for a couple weeks.
All right, so the big reveal graphic. I don't think Dan's even ever seen this. Starting Monday, this is your morning meeting lineup. Again, Tim will be back after the election, but Sean, Dan, and I will see you Monday morning, this Monday at 9 a.m. Eastern time. I may be back later today with a two-way. We'll see. It's Friday. We often take Fridays off, but if something happens, it's big, we'll come back. Might even come back in 10 at night after the Harris event's over if something dramatic happens. But if not, we will see all of you Monday. Tim will not be here unless he's lurking, but he won't be in his chair. And we'll have some programs to announce for next week in addition to the morning meeting that we'll announce either over the weekend or into the next week. But grateful to all of you, Tim. Really grateful to you for being part of episodes 1 through 55. We'll see you in season 2, hopefully season 2, episode 1. Whenever that is, and wish everybody a good day. And if we don't see you later, a good weekend, and we'll see you Monday morning. Thank you.